Hey everybody, thanks for joining me here again today. I want to talk about gaslighting. My wife and I have been having some conversations recently where I just haven't been very present. And the reason for that is because the spotlight's been on me. She's been, just noticing some things about my behavior or things I'm doing with the kids. And when that happens, I just kind of shut down. If the spotlight's not on me, I'm usually a pretty active listener. I'm very engaging. We have great conversations together. But it's this in particular when she and I are trying to have a conversation about my behavior or something that I said I would do that I didn't, I tend to just sort of blank out. I just remove myself from the situation and I just kind of go elsewhere. And she knows I do this. I know I do this because of the therapy I went through. It's a defense mechanism. It's not that I don't trust my wife. It's just I'm so used to going into this state when the focus is on me and my behavior because I immediately go back to all the years that my mom did this to me. The years of gaslighting, the years of making me question my sanity. So I wanted to talk about my experience with my mom doing that, how she would do that, and a little bit about the therapy that I went through, just to kind of give you guys some perspective and maybe it'll resonate with you. Because, again, I am fully invested in being a participant in my marriage, and this is just an area that I constantly have to work on because of the psychological abuse that I went through. And it's not something that I'm ashamed of, but it's something I need to be aware of. So let's get into it. So I've talked about it before a little bit, but my mom's an attorney, okay? She's very, very good at having discussions that end favorably for her. It's kind of her job. So here's kind of what would happen. My mom would approach me and say, hey, we need to have a serious talk later. Great. So what that meant is in a few hours, we're going to talk about something that she's not going to tell me right now what it is, but she's going to reveal to me later. Because A, she wants to formulate her plan, build her case, right? Like her job. And B, she wants me to think about all the possibilities of things that we could talk about and just drive me crazy to be alone with my thoughts. Okay, so we go to have this conversation. The conversation always took place in the same setting. She would be propped up on her bed in her bedroom. I would be standing inside the doorway, looking at her, and I could see through the sliding glass door, and same setting. It's burned into my mind. And the reason why I know this is because I did do a regression hypnosis session with my therapist. She had encouraged me to try this, and man, it was amazing how going through the steps of going under into hypnosis, and then she drew an image out of me. And this was the thing that came to mind. Nothing else about my childhood, adolescent year. This setting is so deeply impressed onto my brain that now looking at it, it is so obvious and so frustrating that it's so obvious because of how often it happened. That I didn't recognize this pattern is frustrating, but again, that's the abuse taking effect. So, okay, so now we're back. We're about to talk. And she'd look at me and say, what do you think we're going to talk about? What a loaded question. I'd give it my best shot. I think we're going to talk about the fact that I didn't take out the garbage. Okay, makes sense, right? It was garbage night. No, that's not what we're going to talk about. But now that you mention it, yeah, I'm not really thrilled about that. We'll talk about that too. No, what I wanted to talk about today was, 3 months ago I had told you that I wanted you to clean out the shed, but that hasn't happened, blah, blah, blah. 3 months ago, why is that important now? So here's the frustration. I'm talking about something that happened immediately, and it makes sense that we talk about it in the present, not something pulled out from months ago and then making it, why is that important now? If it was important, you should have talked to me about it back then, right? No. Now it's important because now she has 2 things to make me feel bad about. She would do this over and over and over again, just to always keep me guessing. As I got older and started to understand a little bit more of the game, I would pay attention a little bit more. Didn't matter. Even if in fact, it made it worse, right? So now I'd come to the talk. I would know without a doubt what we were going to talk about. I knew it because I was ready and I've been paying attention. So here we go. We'd go through the same setup, the same preamble. What are we going to talk about today? This is what we're going to talk about. I know that you're mad about this. Blah, blah, blah. And she'd say no. And then, so if I came at her with some heat, she would just jump right to anger and rage. It was like classic narcissistic tactics, right? So she just kept doing this over and over and over for years and years and years. And eventually, I just stopped caring. I had my dad over here on one side saying, it's just easier to do what your mom says. And I have me on this side trying to fight for myself and my mom just shutting it down every single time. Eventually, I just stopped trying. And she would talk to me and say whatever she had to say, and I just went somewhere else. Because I couldn't deal with the fact that not only was she making me feel bad, but she was lying. I mean, the hypocrisy and the lies and the denying, the gaslighting and making me question my sanity caused me to flip a switch that when we went to talk about my behavior or whatever, I just would shut it down. I couldn't do it anymore. Because even if I had some ability to self-preserve and not allow myself to think too low of myself, you hear it enough times, especially from your own parent. I mean, what are you supposed to do? I got to the point where I didn't trust myself anymore. I didn't trust my own memory. I didn't trust my ability to even recall my own life. This is something that is so frustrating, right? My wife and I talk about things from our childhood. I don't remember my childhood. I can barely remember anything that happened to me prior to 13 years old when my parents got divorced. Most of that is just a blank because at 13, by the time my parents got divorced moving forward, that's when the manipulation and abuse just got so severe. So I feel like that's the time in my life that I just remember the most. Anything prior to that is gone. Not only that, but I don't trust myself. So when my wife, now I'm trying to have no contact with my mom now. And so that's great that I'm not continuing to be abused. But it's affected me so deeply that I'm trying to build my family and just continue my growth with my wife and just our relationship. It makes it very challenging to have a conversation when I don't trust my own memory. So if she even accidentally hints like, that I don't remember something, even if she's not meaning for it to be to the level of like what I'm talking about here, where my mom was gaslighting me. My wife's not intending to gaslight me, but she just might infer that, well, you may have just not remembered. That triggers me instantly, to where if we're talking about something that our kids did, or something, a conversation that she and I had about, plans that we had moving forward, if I get any sense that we had a conversation and I might not be remembering it right, I'll just give up completely. And that's a problem. It's a huge problem. And it's something that I'm working on and fighting to really try to trust myself again, because I'm smart enough, right? I'm at least not capable of not remembering what happened just a few days ago. I know that much. But man, it's really hard. Sometimes it's really hard and really frustrating. So that's kind of what we're talking about here today, is just how powerful this psychological abuse goes, just how deep it runs. For me, it's still affecting me. Even though I've been no contact for over 5 years, and even though I know about the abuse, and even though I've been to therapy, it's still a challenge. Daily, it's a challenge. I want to make sure that you're aware that any abuse, emotionally, psychologically, physically, that you've suffered, it takes its toll. Don't for a minute think that you're alone and that you can't get help for this. This is super scary stuff, and we don't deserve to deal with it alone. We've been alone and isolated because of these people for far too long. Afraid to build relationships and friendships because we're just going to get manipulated or abused again. As I've been telling my story, I've also been more active on social media, and just finding that there's so many people out there who feel the same way, but at the same time, so many people who are strong enough to share their story, that there's been so much abuse, and yet so many people have survived it. Thank you for sharing your story. It's helping me more than you know. I'm going to continue to share my story so that way I can help spread the word too, because I'm still here and I'm still surviving and still growing. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.